Okay, welcome everybody to week 2 of the Sweet Success program. Today's speaker is Lindsay Moore. She is our registered licensed dietitian, and she is here to talk about diabetes and nutrition. I will hand it over to her. Thank you, Lindsay, for doing this today.
Awesome. Thank you. My pleasure. So yes, we're going to be talking about diabetes and nutrition. This PowerPoint, along with a bunch of handout and resources, will be emailed to you guys after this. Okay, so we're going to start with the review of macronutrients. Macronutrients are nutrients in food that provide us with calories or energy. And so we have 3 of these broad class of macronutrients, which are proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. And we're going to dive into these a little deeper and talk about their relationship with diabetes. Okay, so protein is anything like meat, eggs, fish, cheese, and peanut butter. Protein is really important in the body because it's required for tissue repair, building lean muscle mass, immune system function, hormone production, and a lot of other things. Fats are like your oils, your butter, margarine, salad dressing, nuts, and seeds. We actually need fat in the body because it's a slow burning source of energy, and we need it to absorb several vitamins. And then of the 3 macronutrients, carbohydrates is the food group that affects our blood sugar the most. And carbohydrates are your bread, your rice, your pasta, beans, fruit, milk, yogurt, and then your 3 starchy vegetables, peas, corn, and potatoes. And then a lot of our sweetened snack foods. And the primary function of carbohydrates is to provide energy in our body, especially our brain and our nervous system. And each of these macronutrients really does serve a purpose. We need all 3 of these in our diet. And any diet that eliminates one of these is not a good diet. And importantly, just because carbohydrates affect our blood glucose, our blood sugar, doesn't mean we should eliminate them. So what is glucose? Glucose is a form of sugar that is the body's main source of energy. The body's digestive system breaks down food, specifically our carbohydrates, into glucose. And then glucose travels into our bloodstream throughout the cells in our body. I really like this picture just to kind of explain the absorption of glucose. So that first picture are a lot of our carbohydrate foods. So you see that bread, the beans, your milk, some of your fruit. When we eat those carbohydrates, it goes into our digestive system. We break it down into glucose, and that glucose goes straight into our blood. And then from there, glucose gets into our cells throughout the body through the help of insulin. It's kind of like a lock and key. Glucose cannot get into our cells without insulin. But with diabetes, we either aren't making enough insulin or our insulin is not working properly. So our glucose isn't able to get into our cells. So instead, it just sits in our blood. And that's why we can have high blood sugars. So here are some goals with healthy eating and diabetes. Each day, I would like you guys to shoot for 3 small meals and 1 to 3 snacks spaced evenly apart. Really, the key is eating consistent amount of carbohydrates at meal. So really more carbohydrate moderation. Try not to skip meals or snacks, and try to have a snack if meals are spaced more than 4 to 5 hours apart. You can eat more often than that if you would like, but we just typically don't want to go longer than 4 to 5 hours because that's when our blood sugar either gets really low or really high. Try to eat a variety of foods with color and select foods high in fiber frequently. And most importantly, pair carbohydrate with the protein. So really, every time you eat, get a carbohydrate and get a protein with it. So we're going to talk about how we can make some wise choices within our carbohydrate food group. So when you're choosing your carbohydrates, try to choose more of your complex carbohydrates. This just means they have more vitamins, minerals, and fiber, and they digest them more slowly, which helps prevent the peaks and the valleys in your blood sugar levels. And these are going to be your whole grains, your legumes, beans, fruits, and vegetables. No food's ever off limits, which is the great news, but just trying to limit more of those simple carbohydrates, so just not every day all the time. Just because they contain little nutrients and they're highly processed and they digest quickly, so that that causes a lot of rapid spikes in your blood sugar. So these are like your soda, your candy, fruit juice, syrup, white breads, and white pastas. Okay, fat. So fat, not all fats are created equal. The types of fat affect your blood cholesterol. So really fats don't affect your blood sugar, but are more so blood cholesterol and our heart health. So unsaturated fats help reduce the risk for heart disease. These are considered our good fats. A good general rule to go by is they're liquid at room temperature. So your oils, so all your oils, olive oil, avocado oil, vegetable oil, canola oil, things like that. Nuts, seeds, and avocados. These are great for increasing your fullness and absorbing several vitamins, but we do want to watch our portion sizes on these guys. And then we have our saturated and trans fats, and these are actually going to increase our risk of heart disease. We typically consider these bad fats. Good general rule is they're solid at room temperature. So your butter, your margarine, your whole fat dairy products, and your high fat meats. Okay, protein. So when choosing protein, really try to choose more lean sources of protein, like 90% lean beef or higher, skinless chicken, pork chops, turkey, eggs, all those. Really trying to limit the intake of processed meat, like your bacon, bologna, sausage, hot dogs, and more. Again, completely fine every once in a while, just trying to choose more of that lean protein for your heart. Another tip with that is trimming the visible fat. So whether you're eating a steak or some sort of pork, I know it's really common for them to have fat on the side, just trimming a little bit of that off. And then choosing lean cooking methods. So bake, broil, grill, steam, poach. Overall, really just trying to limit the fried. Another good rule to go by, this is really helpful when you're looking at beef and pork, is choosing the round and the loin cuts in meats. I feel like it gets really confusing knowing what kind of beef is healthier to choose and what kind of pork is healthier to choose. So like your pork loin, your sirloin, looking for that round in the loin and the description of the meat. Fiber. So fiber is awesome in the body. It contributes to our digestive health, regulates our bowel movements, increases our fullness, and it controls our blood sugars. And then on top of all that, it lowers that LDL cholesterol, our bad cholesterol. So does a bunch of amazing things in our body. So we really want to select high fiber foods frequently. And this is our whole grains, our beans, legumes, fruits, and vegetables. Strive for a goal of 25 to 30 grams of fiber a day or as tolerated. You do not have to count your fiber if you like. As long as you're choosing more of those high fiber foods, you're going to be okay. But really the key if you want to eat more fiber is to increase it slowly. So we don't want to increase all of our fiber at once because that can just create some bad GI effects. And drink plenty of water so we don't get constipated. And just try to get some movement in there too if you can, or any activity. Since it is difficult to get that much fiber, consider a Metamucil supplement, but always talk to your doctor first. Okay, so now we're going to talk about what we can do to really achieve this carbohydrate consistency and carbohydrate moderation to control your diabetes and blood sugars. One of the methods is carbohydrate counting. And so the key is carbohydrate amount should be consistent at meals. So for each meal, I would like you guys to be around 45 to 60 grams of carbohydrates per meal. And then for a snack, 15 to 30 grams of carbs. So just an example, if you were to have breakfast at 7, 45 to 60 carbs, lunch at 12, you get another 45 to 60 carbs. And then dinner is at 6 o'clock, you get another 45 to 60 carbs. But trying to remember, we don't want to go longer than 4 to 5 hours without eating. So between lunch and dinner, this person's going 6 hours. So maybe consider throwing in an afternoon snack, 15 to 30 carbs. And having a bedtime snack, if you would like, 15 to 30 carbs. And actually having a bedtime snack can help lower your blood sugars in the morning. So there's a couple ways to determine the amount of carbohydrates you have in your food, one of which is looking at your food labels. So there's really two things I want you guys to look at on your food labels. it's really awesome because they're going to get you spot on with the amount of carbs, and everything has a food label. So first, look at that total carbohydrate. So if you see on this picture to the left, it says total carbohydrate in bolded black, and it says 11 grams. Ignore the percent daily value. Those are irrelevant. We just want to look at the grams. So the other thing I want you to look at is that serving size. The serving size up top says 1 slice. It's okay to have more or less in the serving size. We just want to know what they claim the serving size to be, so we know if we need to add or subtract from our total carbohydrate. So to that orange bubble at the bottom, so 11 grams is 1 serving or 1 slice. But if you did 2 slices, you would just need to double those carbs and you'd have 22, which is perfectly fine to do. So it's really nice, completely up to you on how you want to spend and use your carbs, as long as you're sticking around 45 to 60 per meal and 15 to 30 for a snack. And then jumping back to that total carbohydrates, under your total carbohydrates, it talks about your fiber and your sugars. These are all types of carbohydrates, so it's already included in your carbohydrates. Just because there's other types of carbohydrates in your food besides sugar, you can look at your sugar and your fiber, but for carb counting, look at that total carbohydrate. And then if you also notice, 3 plus 1 is not 11. That's because there's other types of carbohydrates in this food. They're just not listed on this label. Okay, so I got some good examples for you guys just to kind of practice what we talked about. So this is just common frozen pizza. So if we look at our total carbohydrates, it says 35 grams of carbs. And then looking up at our serving size, the serving size is 1/6 of a pizza. So if we cut this pizza in 6 slices, 1 slice is 35 carbs. So if we were to eat 1 slice, we're at 35. 2 slices, we're already at 70 carbohydrates, so a little over from that 60. And 3 slices, we're at 105. And that is easily doable, if not the whole pizza. So really with this, we'll also talk about what to eat when we're still hungry, but to not go over on our carbs. So completely fine to still have pizza. We just want to be more mindful of how many carbs is in each serving. So with counting carbohydrates, it's not a carryover plan, which means unused grams of carbohydrates do not carry over into the next meal or snack, or vice versa. You don't need to take any carbs away if you were to have more than 60. So if you're allowed 45 to 60 at breakfast, but you only eat 30 carbs, that does not mean you can add an additional 15 to 30 at lunch. So that kind of stinks, but if you were to have 80 at breakfast, you would still get 45 to 60 at lunch. Just because that key is carbohydrate consistency. We don't need to be perfect with this all the time. I always say most meals, most days. So if you go over on your carbohydrates, just drink some water and get your body moving if you can, because that will help lower your blood sugar. So now we're going to talk about the plate method. This is another method you could use for achieving this carbohydrate consistency. Some people like to use both the plate method and carbohydrate counting, one or the other. Both are great. It's just whatever you prefer. So the plate method is a good guideline as to what your plate should look like at meals. Helps monitor portion sizes to avoid overeating, and helps with this carbohydrate consistency. So we want to fill 1/4 of our plate with our lean protein. So really trying to get some protein in there. Make 1/4 of your plate grains. So a lot of your carbohydrates, so your bread, your rice, your pasta. This is where your peas, corn, and potatoes go on your plate. So really just trying to designate about 1/4 of your plate to a lot of those carbohydrate foods. And then make 1/2 of your plate vegetables. All your non-starchy vegetables, really any vegetable that you can think of besides those peas, corn, potatoes. And then a little serving of fruit on this side if you want. And this also, to answer the question of what to eat if you're at your carbohydrate limit and you're still hungry, which is completely normal and is going to happen. So eating more of that protein and eating more of those non-starchy vegetables will increase your fullness, but not add any carbs or affect your blood sugar. Okay, beverages. So just trying to rethink some of our common drinks we like. Really just trying to watch out for those carbohydrates and empty calories in liquid form. So those regular sodas, the juice, sweet tea, lemonades, slushies, and smoothies. Really trying to replace it with water because water is going to increase our energy, our fullness, and help relieve some constipation. So I want you guys to develop a plan to maintain your fluids. Just kind of, what works best for you to help make sure we get you hydrated, whether that's carrying a water bottle, setting alarms on your phone, using a straw. They have little types of water bottles that have little motivational quotes on them, just something to help keep you hydrated. Because keeping ourselves hydrated is really going to help control our blood sugars. The goal is about 64 ounces or 8 cups daily. So feel free to do more than that, but slowly you're working your way up to those. Feel free to try Crystal Light, Mio, Propel, Gatorade Zero, adding lemon in your water, all those popular carbonated waters that are out there. That all counts towards your fluids. Just really wanting to limit those sugar sweetened beverages because when we drink those throughout the day, that's just going to keep our blood sugar really high. Okay, so here are some common sizes of beverages that we typically get. So a 20-ounce regular soda, that has 65 grams of carbohydrates, not a lot of beneficial nutrients, just wanting to be more mindful about the carbohydrates in our foods. A 32-ounce regular soda has 105 grams of carbs, no beneficial nutrients, and this is the common size you get at fast food restaurants. So you typically get that plus more. So here are some tips for eating out. Completely fine to eat out with having diabetes. Just wanting to think ahead and plan a little bit. If you go online and look at the nutrition menu, it'll tell you the carbohydrate content. So for example, Subway, theirs looks like a big Excel sheet. McDonald's, theirs looks like a food label. So it's required by law for them to have all this nutrition information online. So take a look and see what you're wanting to eat, how many carbohydrates there are, and maybe eating half of it or trying something else altogether. Completely up to you. Another tip is eating the same portion you do at home. That can kind of help us overdoing the carbohydrates a little bit. You can split an order with a family member or friend, or you can take half home. So this is what I like to do at Chipotle. I just go ahead, as soon as I get my food, I just put half of it in a little to-go box because that'll reduce the temptation of me eating the whole thing, which is completely doable. So asking for that to-go box as soon as your food comes out to kind of reduce that temptation a little bit. Decoding the menu. So I feel like when we look at menus, there's just a lot of unfamiliar words on there. So this can kind of just help a little bit reduce the amount of carbohydrates, but also be a little bit more heart healthy. So trying to avoid the high fat cooking methods like the fried, crispy, scalloped, pan fried, sauteed, butter, creamed, and stuffed, and trying to choose more of those lean cooking methods. So baked, broiled, boiled, steamed, grilled, poached, and roasted. Okay, so now we're going to talk about sugar alcohols. Very common out there now. So sugar alcohols are a type of reduced calorie sweetener that provides half the calories of sugar and other carbohydrates. They are harder on the body to digest and have less effect on blood sugar than regular sugar. They typically end in OL, so that's kind of the key to look for them. Some of the really common ones are sorbitol, mannitol, xylitol, and erythritol. But even though they're called sugar alcohols, they do not contain alcohol. Sugar alcohols are often in products such as your ice cream, your cookies, chewing gum, pudding, candies, and they're labeled sugar-free or no sugar added. So here are just some common examples of those sugar alcohols in food. But there's often a misconception with sugar alcohols. Just because it's sugar-free does not mean it's carbohydrate free, because there's other types of carbohydrates besides sugar. Often misconception, all sugar alcohols containing products are free foods. So unfortunately, they're not free foods. And some of these products still may contain a significant amount of carbohydrates. So that's why it's really important to always check that food label for that total carbohydrates and grams. And with sugar alcohols, there can be some side effects such as gas, bloating, laxative effect if you have a lot at once. So some people prefer to use the regular version of food and cut back on their portion sizes instead of buying that sugar-free version. Plus, the sugar-free versions often cost more. So that was sugar alcohols, and now we're going to talk about artificial sweeteners. I feel like we kind of blur those together and they're a little confusing. So artificial sweeteners, this is like your equal, your Splenda, Sweet and Low, stevia, things like this. So artificial sweeteners are non-nutritive sweeteners. They offer a sweet taste of sugar, but they have no carbohydrates or calories, and these do not affect your blood sugar. And when used in place of sugar at meals or snacks, artificial sweeteners can help you stay within your carbohydrate goals. But it can have a negative side effect. So if excessive consumption, like those sugar alcohols, you could have some bloating, gas, or diarrhea. And out of all these artificial sweeteners, stevia is the most natural option of the sweeteners because it's not artificially processed, but does not affect your blood sugar. So this is the little chart I like to just kind of review everything with, just to compare. So sugar alcohols are not the same as artificial sweeteners. Your artificial sweeteners have no calories or carbohydrates and do not raise or elevate your blood sugars. Sugar alcohols could have about 2 calories and carbohydrates, and they will have some effect on your blood sugar levels. Okay, so I know we talked about a lot today, but just some key things I really want you guys to remember with today. We have 3 macronutrients in our body. We have our protein, our fat, and our carbohydrates. Carbohydrates directly affect your blood sugar levels, but this does not mean you can't have them. We just want smaller portions and more carbohydrate consistency. Trying to aim for 3 meals and 1 to 3 snacks a day. And have a snack or a meal or have a snack or something to eat if meals are longer than 4 to 5 hours. Completely fine to eat more often than that. So 45 to 60 grams of carbs per meal and 15 to 30 grams of carbs per snacks, or making about 1/4 of your plate, a lot of those grains and carbohydrates. Really try to include a lean protein and plenty of non-starchy vegetables with every meal. Choose whole grains and high fiber products if you can, and always look at that food label because that's going to be your great go-to. So a new you. You guys should be very proud of yourselves by already making the first step of being here and participating in this awesome program, really wanting to learn more about diabetes. But this is a lot at once. So just remember, change occurs slowly. So really set small, measurable goals that are practical for you. Don't expect perfection because no one's perfect. We don't need to be perfect with this all the time. Just really kind of slowly working your way into it. And the really nice thing about everything we talked about is what's healthy for you is also healthy for your family. So take charge of your health because you guys got this and you can do it. Okay, so I see we have some questions. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask away or type them in this box. Okay, so this first question is, if nuts are fats, how can peanut butter be a protein? So that's a great point. So a lot of your foods are going to be in multiple categories. So a lot of your proteins will have protein and fat. So that's completely fine. Your milk is another example. It's going to have carbs, protein, and fat. And then Linda said, pass on the speaker at the end. Oh, thank you. Okay. Are Benefiber and Metamucil the same? Yeah, they're just different brands. Just whatever you prefer. The Swerve brand. Oh, yes, I've seen that one before. I I am actually not too sure about what's all in that one, but I can definitely do some research and get back to Linda for you on that one. Write that down.
Lindsay, I don't know if you saw the one. It says, why should you pair carbs and proteins together? And they want to know how it affects the blood sugar.
Yeah, great question. So when we eat carbohydrates, it's going to naturally increase your blood sugar, which is what we want. And then it's going to kind of fall back down. So what protein does, it really anchors down those blood sugars and keeps them normal longer and kind of keeps them steady throughout the day. Plus it keeps you fuller. So really trying to get some sort of carbohydrate and some sort of protein if you can. Yeah. Is there any other questions, Linda, that I didn't see?
Did we get the skip meals question? You might have covered that as you went on in your your presentation. They ask about skipping meals.
Yeah, so we do want to limit skipping meals just because the body's weird in how it works. What happens if we go too long without eating is your blood sugar gets really low, but then your liver tries to kick in and compensate and shoot your blood sugar up too high. So that's why I want to limit skipping meals and trying to eat every 4 to 5 hours. Completely fine, to skip meals every once in a while. We just don't want to do it all the time every day.
Let's see what else we got in.
Is it in the chat?
So I think you answered the question about swerve.
Yep, I'm gonna get back to you on that one.
And a fiber and Metamucil.
Yep.
If nuts are fats, how can peanut butter be a protein?
Yeah, so a lot of your foods are going to be in multiple food groups. So yeah, peanut butter is a fat and a protein. And yeah, like your milk is on all three, unless it's skim milk and it doesn't have any fat.
Okay, ladies, does anyone have anything else for Lindsay? Lindsay, that was an amazing presentation. You did such a great job of covering everything that is so very important with diabetes and trying to manage the nutrition to help yourself be healthier and just control those blood sugars. What a great job you did.
Awesome. Thank you. My pleasure. I love doing these. So
I do have one more little question here someone threw out there. I feel like when I eat in the day, it makes me so tired. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So kind of maybe either making that a smaller meal or eating, kind of spreading your meals more throughout the day, kind of avoiding larger meals at the end of the day can help. And definitely, choosing more of those whole grains, fruits and vegetables can just give you a little bit more energy, and staying plenty hydrated too.
I just wanted to throw in, sometimes when you get into the afternoon evenings, when you're starting to feel a little tired and lazy, sometimes getting up and go for an extra walk. If you walk or exercise for 10 minutes, it boosts the endorphins in your brain and it gives you that feel good feeling. So that, kicking in a little extra exercise or walks, even when you're tired, can sometimes alleviate those sleepiness and, tiredness feelings.
Yes, that's what I like to do, is just kind of walk up a couple flights of stairs middle afternoon just to get some energy back. So
yeah.
Great tip.
Anybody else? Well, Lindsay, thank you so much again. And as for the people on the presentation, it does take a couple of weeks to edit these, but I will send them out to each participant that attended today. And we will look forward to seeing you all next week.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Bye.
Goodbye, everyone.